I'd like to call the meeting to order. We'll start off with roll call. Carrie? Eric's young. No, okay, I didn't think she's going to be late. Joe?
Joe Coletti, Hebron.
Great, thanks. Gabe?
Gabe Marks, Hebron.
Thank you. Eric?
Eric Shevchenko, Andover.
Great, thank you. Mary?
Mary Kuchelski, Marlboro.
Great. Pam? Gemma? No. Mike?
Mike Sharon, Hebron.
Thank you. Kristen?
Houston Robinson, Andover.
Great, thank you. Sue? Shella? No, okay. And Heather?
Heather Summer, Hebron.
Great, thank you. And Mike Morris, Hebron. At this point, item 2, the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag's in the back. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, which brings us to item 3, public comments. So if you bear with me for a moment, Hebron, Andover, and Marlboro community engagement and attendance at Board of Education public meetings is welcome. The public comment segment of the meeting agenda is set aside so the Board of Education may receive public comments. Procedurally, public remarks will be limited to 3 minutes, and citizens will be asked to identify themselves. Because the Board of Education is limited by the Freedom of Information Act to discussing only matters on the agenda, the Board of Education is not permitted to engage in a discussion of comments presented. And Gabe, if I could ask you just to be the timekeeper for us. Thank you. At this point, is there anybody present that would like to give comment? Please.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I know of a couple governmental agencies.
I'm sorry, could I just ask you to identify yourself real quick first before you?
Terry McManus, 169 North Street, Hebron.
Great, thank you.
You got right in the middle of my joke.
Sorry, I blew your timing. I apologize.
I know a couple of governmental agencies that would love to use your room. I have to compliment the board on this meeting room, but also unbelievably successful hybrid model. You've achieved probably the most open meeting that I've seen yet within town and actually around the state. So congratulations. No, not congratulations. Thank you. I don't have to come down all the time. Which brings me to the reason I'm here. What y'all do is not easy. I've done it in past lives. I know how hard it is. I know the difficult decisions that need to be made. And I just wanted to say we have some outgoing board members here, and I want to just say thank you. Y'all do a good job. It's thankless sometimes, and I appreciate it. Eric, I really liked your comments, your parting comments at the last meeting. They were insightful. They helped me out a bunch. I look forward to coming to more board meetings in the future, and I wish you all, those that are remaining, good next couple of years. Anyways, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else like to give public comment that's present? Okay, seeing none. Is there anyone online that would give public comment? Just make yourself known or raise your digital hand. No? Okay, Eric's telling me no, which will move us on to item 4, which is the addition or deletion of any agenda items. So I'll open it up to the board. Anybody wish to add or delete anything? Okay, so that is a no, which moves us on to student representative reports. Ava, you're up.
All right. So I would like to say hello, everyone. So first of all, the blood drive is tomorrow. So students will be lining up and getting their blood drawn, and it will be kind of fun. There will be like, I heard there will be like Christmas themed fuzzy socks and like a movie playing. So that's really cute. And secondly, the volleyball team has won their state championship game, which is really incredible and super exciting for our school. You know, they always do a great job every single year. So definitely applause for them. And another thing is that seniors are almost done with their college applications. Definitely a lot of anticipation about like, you know, getting their acceptances or denials back or hearing back from colleges. All of that and that entire process has definitely made quarter one stressful for seniors, but I think going into quarter 2 is becoming a bit less stressful. Another thing that I have noticed as I've been attending these, I know we haven't talked about it in a while, the diversity and equity meetings. So recently I've noticed that there has been like a lower attendance. For example, the last meeting, I think we only had, well, including me, 2 attendees. So currently we've been like discussing about ways like we could possibly increase the attendance. That's sort of just been an ongoing thing. So I thought I'd just keep the board updated. And that's my report. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Alvaro.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Biggest thing I wish to say is in the Board of Ed meeting that we're discussing the workload of a high school student on a day-to-day basis. And I've been hearing around the school that a lot of students have been stressed about taking 2 to 3 tests in a day, and brought to our attention the struggles of a student and how difficult to manage like all these assignments constantly from many different classes and even things outside of school. And I thought up to bring this to the attention of the board to remind us of the struggle of the student on a day-to-day basis, and just to keep that in the back of our minds. In addition, the NHA's induction meeting is on the 6th of December, which is exciting for new members of the NHS. And our soccer team, the boys soccer team, got to the semifinals and lost by a close 1 point, but still did a great job. It's a good accomplishment today. That's my report.
That's great. Thank both of you. Okay, well, that moves us on to item 6, which is the chair report. So first, I just want to say, stole some of my thunder. Appreciate that. The volleyball team, awesome job on Saturday. Class M state champs. And great job by the soccer team as well. They definitely worked hard. I know the girls also made it to the quarterfinals and lost a really close one. So it was all the way around a great fall season in general. And I know the boys football team is tomorrow night, and they're playing not here and not at Bacon, but at Cheney Tech. So if you're available and you're interested in some Thanksgiving football with RHAM High School, that's where the game will be. And that should close out their season, which they did a great job as well. So there are, Mr. McManus pointed out, there's some board members leaving, and I just wanted to take this opportunity. I'm one of them. I just want to take this opportunity to thank the board members that are leaving, Eric, Mary, and Sue, and myself. They've been instrumental in everything that we've done that's positive and helpful. It's hard. I think we come to one meeting and think that, this is kind of what we do every day, but really there's policy meetings and meetings to maintain the buildings and figure out how we're going to fix the fields and how come we didn't get to frack the well didn't frack right, and we have to go back and redo that, and curriculum meetings, and there's all sorts of things that go on kind of outside of this realm and in a much smaller group, and it's a lot of work, and it's an honor to be a member of the group with all of you, and it's been something that's been a learning experience for me, and I've really appreciated the time here, and certainly appreciate everything that everybody on the board has done. On the same note, I think I'm comfortable in saying for the 4 board members that are leaving, as well as the ones that are staying, that no one generally is successful on their own, and that is a direct result of the team, the administrative team, Mr. McNamara and his team, the teachers, both the folks in the classroom and the people behind the scenes, all the administrative folks that kind of make things happen outside of the classroom, and the people that take care of the fields and coaches and all the things that make this place, the district, what it is. It's a lot of hard work, and the board certainly appreciates both coming and going. And then the last thing I would just say is that we have a couple of new board members here that are, I think, just trying to get their feet wet and see how it goes. And wish you the best of luck. Congratulations on your reelection. And I can't tell you that it's been such a great experience working with this group, and I'm sure you'll do a great job and just add to it, which is great. I think you'll get a lot out of the next 4 years. And yes, it is 4 years. That's all I'm saying.
So I just, I'm going to echo a few things. I also want to congratulate the girls volleyball team. I was there on Saturday when they won the championship. I think it was they lost one game. It was 3-1 to win the match. It was like one of the few games. I know they've lost a couple of matches this season, but I think it was few and far between. It was a great game, great match, and I'm super excited. The one thing that I'll add is not only is it the third consecutive year that this particular team has won, it's the 10th, I believe it's the 10th state championship for Coach Guernsey, which is a pretty remarkable feat. He just keeps doing it, and the kids keep doing it. It's remarkable. I just want to say thanks to the veterans, including Chairman Morris, who came here in the days preceding Veterans Day a couple of weeks ago. A great celebration of both the high school and middle school. We appreciate you and your other veterans for coming in and talking with the students. We appreciate all you've done for our country, what you did for the community by coming in and talking with the kids. Somebody that didn't get right, I do have some new stuff. So I do want to recognize and congratulate the RHAM Middle School girls cross country team, who I learned finished 4th overall at the middle school state cross country meet. And as well as the boys soccer team lost a nail biter of a game. It was tied at double overtime. Just for context, it was tied at double overtime, and then it went to penalty. I don't understand soccer, but this is what I'm told. And then it goes to penalty kicks if it's still tied after 2 overtimes, and we lost by 1 goal in penalty kicks. It was like either 6-7 or 7-8. So it was a heartbreaking loss, but super proud of the boys for the good season that they had. I also want to welcome the 2 board members who will be officially joining the board at our next board meeting. Thanks for being here, and I look forward to working with you. And to that point, I want to recognize our 4 board members who will have tonight as their last meeting, be their last. Board Chair Mike Morris, Board Vice Chair Sue Stolpe, Board Member Mary, and Eric Shevchenko. On behalf of the entire RHAM staff, I want to express our sincere gratitude to each of you for your dedicated service to the RHAM community. Your tireless advocacy and support for students and staff is noted and appreciated. What I always say is when you have a high functioning board, you can have a high functioning district. And I think that this board is indicative of the good work that we're able to do here. So we appreciate the work that we're doing for the students in the district. I do just have small tokens of appreciation. That I'll pass out real quick. Thank you very much. Don't go back to me. Thank you very much. And I will just conclude by saying that I hope everybody on the board, and I hope all of our people here in attendance, students and staff and members of the community, have a wonderful Thanksgiving. It's a great opportunity for us to reflect and be thankful on the things that we have, and certainly a lot to be thankful here in this community. So I just want to say Thanksgiving, and that concludes my report.
All right, which brings us to item 8, which is the approval of the minutes. At this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the regular October 16th Board of Education meeting.
So moved.
Thanks, Mike. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Heather. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries unanimously. Which brings us to item 9, which is the student program spotlight and the best part of the meeting. And that is RHAM's dual credit program.
So I'll just kick it off and say that, as the board knows, Region 8 was awarded a grant for almost $40,000 from the state earlier this year to enhance and expand our dual credit offerings for RHAM high school students. Our district was one of 89 Connecticut school districts identified and chosen to receive grant funding through this competitive grant. The grant was written by 3 staff members who are joining us here today. I'm going to talk. Lori Vega-Boulet, our dual credit coordinator, Mary Rose Mead, our curriculum coordinator and instructional coach for the district, and Dr. Penny Griswold, RHAM high school principal. I noted this, I think, to the board at one point already, but I think it's worth repeating. I think that this was 5 or 6 days into the summer that you guys got together and wrote that, or something to that effect. So it was like the beginning of June, summer kicked off. I just think it's important to note that the board had invested in the new position of the curriculum coordinator and instructional coach. And Lori's position as the dual credit ECE coordinator is also a new position. And I just think that, within 5 to 7 days of 2 people being new in new positions, they've went out and got us a $40,000 award. So it's money well invested on behalf of the district, and we appreciate the work that you did. They're going to, again, they're going to talk about the dual credit program and provide an overview of it, speak how the grant funding will be used to expand and enhance the curriculum. I'm sorry, enhance the current program. Fortunately, we are joined by some high school students who will share how they are taking advantage of the opportunity to earn college credits through classes that are part of the RHAM Educational Opportunities Handbook. So I'll turn it over to our presenters. Now to the podium.
So looking at our dual credit program, you'll see on the slide, here are several of the colleges that we articulate dual credit programs with. And we also up there have the AP College Board. And I want to explain a little bit about the difference between the AP pathway to getting college credit versus dual enrollment, because they're different, although they serve a similar purpose. So the AP program is run by College Board, and students will take an AP course for an entire year. We'll take an AP course for an entire year, and they will study content related to the test for that course, and they will build skills around that. Whether or not they are able to access college credit is dependent on how they do in May on a single sitting for a single test. It's a very high stakes test. For kids who are up for it, it's great. But for some kids, that's not the best way for them to be evaluated. And it's not always the best way for them to learn. The dual credit is a different kind of option for them to earn college credit by attending a course that's been articulated with another college like UConn English or ECSU Public Speaking that is taught by a qualified faculty member at RHAM. Faculty members are certified by the colleges, and they're often trained by the college as well, and they execute the course here at RHAM. At the end of the year, the grade that the student receives then goes on to a transcript from that college or university. And so instead of having to sit for a high stakes test, the students receive the credit on a college transcript as if they were sitting in that college course. And so that's really the difference between the two. Both serve a purpose for different kinds of students, but by expanding our dual enrollment program, we're offering more opportunities for more students. Hello. As you can see up here, we have a listing of the RHAM courses that we currently run with different organizations and the cost, if there is any, that is associated with those. We mostly have UConn EC courses, but we also have a good amount at Connecticut State College, which is formerly known as National Community College, at Blue Rivers, and also Capital Community College. And those are free. Aerospace engineering, which is through St. Cloud. When we run that course, it is $100 for the course as long as they meet a test grade and also pass with a certain percentage. And then we also have some other engineering CTE courses that are affiliated with RITE, which is Rochester Institute of Technology, and the University of Haven. And those are also a kind of a per course price point. We have the YMCI, the Manufacturing for Industry, which is a pipeline, which will include River. That's a little bit of different coursework, which allows students to earn some credit and at the same time get the prep for, certified. Depends. There's a few different kind of stuff that are involved there, but that's also free. And then the last are listed there are the UConn courses, and those are $50. When you look at what we have currently, we also have the solution courses that are in work. When you look at the Eastern courses there, the ones that have a single asterisk, those are the ones that we are planning on offering potentially next year. So we have a whole bunch of art classes that we didn't have before. We're opening up coursework to students who, while I don't want to say the high flyers are kind of who we see in some of the other courses, but it's opening to a different range of students and a little bit more inclusive. We have a whole art section that's coming in. We also have creative writing potentially, an English course. We have the UConn introduction to engineering. And then we just yesterday, that means that we probably gonna have graphic design and also photography for the student members. I'm looking into potentially expanding world language so that we can go into earlier years of construction and science. There's a few others. This next slide is just a comparison so you can see what students are saving. We compared UConn, URI, and a private school. So when you look at it, all of the schools, the basic minimum full-time enrollment is 12 credits. So at the most, this is how expensive they've been spending for 12 credits. Of course, it's 15 credits, and a little less. But based on a semester and also with the student fees that they have to pay, 3 credits equates to $2,500 at UConn versus $200. At URI is $4,400 versus $200. And then you have Quinnipiac, which is $65. So there's a great savings here, and these are what we're comparing. And of course, I'm comparing it to paid credits. We're not talking about the 3 courses. BCSU, which is a little less.
So this slide shows you the just a snapshot of the last 3 years of enrollment that we've had in our dual enrollment classes. We've had dual enrollment for a while, but this grant and other opportunities to collaborate with colleges in the area have expanded, which we're really excited about. And as you can see, you know, we have a steady number of students who are enrolled in these courses, and we just continue to see, you know, intend to see them to move up as well as we offer more courses and as students realize the gold mine that they have here in terms of being able to walk out of high school with so many college credits and not have to spend that money later on, which for me, I think is priceless. If you go to the next, we have what this grant actually is covering for us. So we could, as we were told by the state of how much we could apply for. And we could apply for up to 40,000. So we had to get it under 40, but I think we only left pennies on the table really. And we had to like really figure it all out in order to get there. But, you know, we have a combination of curriculum writing for existing and new coursework for the dual enrollment classes, professional development that helps our teachers to, you know, be able to teach those courses at the high school level for the colleges. And then the textbooks that go along with several of the courses that we are implementing, and also 2 key big items that I think are very notable here because they're definitely things that we wouldn't have been able to get otherwise. And so for our engineering and manufacturing, we have the laser marking machine, and then our interactive iRobot, which I included a picture of there in the corner for you. We actually just ordered that recently. Otherwise, I would have had them come here and display for you, but maybe at a future meeting. It'll be exciting to see what that does. It's an interactive AI robot that has a lot of potential to help our students to sort of grow in that area. So we're really excited about that. And then we have our students here with us. So unfortunately, Jolie was planning on being here, but unfortunately she got called into work and she's a very responsible young lady. So she regrets not being here, but she has had the anatomy and physiology course, our UConn English, business communications, marketing principles, and personal finance. So many college credits that she'll walk away with. And we're highlighting these students particularly because they really are the ones who have taken true advantage and will walk away with a lot of credits in their pocket. I know that Ava and Oliver have both taken dual enrollment courses, so they will walk away with some credits as well. But we wanted to highlight some of our kids who are sort of running the gamut and the different options that we've had. So they're going to explain their experience with you. So we're going to start with Grace.
Hi, I'm Grace Shadow, and I'm a senior. And I've taken UConn English, Business Communications, Marketing Principles, Accounting, Software Applications, and next semester I'll be taking Personal Finance. And I think that the dual enrollment program at RHAM is a very great program because I know that when I was going and talking to my colleges that I applied to, I was telling them about the programs that I've been taking and how they've been dual enrollment. And they were very, very impressed that I was doing all of that. So I just felt like that's a big contribution to that type of experience.
Hi, I'm Emily Corey. I've taken EMT, Medical Careers, Anatomy and Physiology, and next semester I'll be taking Communications. And if it wasn't for EMT, I wouldn't have had all the opportunities that I have today. Like I'm in my town's fire department. I have my EMT certification, and I've attended the CT Fire Academy intro and advanced class. And if it wasn't for these classes, I would never have thought that I would be in that field because none of my family is in that at all. And not only am I getting college credits, but I'm able to apply because I've never been a math and science person. But because I'm taking these medical classes, I'm able to show colleges that I can apply math and science in a medical way. And that shows that I can excel in those fields. And that gives me that opportunity. And I'm very glad that I'm taking it.
Hello, I'm Landon Bell, and I'm a senior at RHAM. I'm taking software applications and marketing principles next semester, but I've already taken personal finance and business communications. And kind of like Emily, I never really thought of what I wanted to do for college until the last 2 years where I've taken personal finance, business communications, and I've also taken management, which is in dual enrollment class, but it kind of helped me strive to put me in the direction that I want to go for like sports management when I'm in college. And I kind of want to highlight the fact that for me, it was really the teachers that kind of connected to me, like Dr. Hall and Mr. Landry. They really kind of like, I connected with them instantly, like the first day I ever met them. And then they kind of drove me to where I wanted to be for college and to where I am today. And even like, say you're going into the military, so maybe you're not really thinking, oh, I don't really need these credits, but like personal finance and business communications, you're always going to need to know how to talk to people. So communications is a really good class. And then personal finance helps you out with like managing your money. So ever since I took that class, I always put like 60% of my paycheck into the bank and I don't touch it. And I just kind of leave it there because I know that I'm going to need that money for college, and the credits help me out with college as well. So I won't have to pay as much money when I'm older.
Hi, my name's James Kelleher. I'm a senior at RHAM. During my time at high school, I've taken 5 dual enrollment courses. I've also taken a number of AP courses. I've taken 4 such so far, and I've also taken, I'm taking 4 this year. So if you want to know more about that other pathway, and the reason why I'm taking them is primarily just to just make sure that colleges know that I can sort of have rigor and responsibility needed for like college level classes, and being able to show them that in high school is really important.
So thank you to our students, and thank you for listening. And now if you have any questions or comments.
Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, thank you. If you're able to satisfy the requirements and and get the college credit at a given school, does that help or imply that you will be accepted to that school when you graduate from there?
It doesn't guarantee an acceptance, but certainly when you have you've already been enrolled there and have taken classes and have been successful, I can't, but think that that's giving you a leg up for sure.
Well,
Yeah.
when you're on Naviance and you start listing the courses, there's a section where you get to list in what order, like, are they level 1, are they in honors, are they advanced placement, are they full college prep course, and then you can kind of demonstrate where they fall in that area. So in some ways, colleges do see right away that these courses aren't just, because like UConn will say UConn ski, so they know it's UConn, but the ECF will say. So when you can distinct the type of coursework that it is, it does, I think it does help. And it does show that you're taking a rigorous course instead of, a non-college course.
Yeah, I was just thinking that it's a stressful time for students to apply to school. And if they have a little extra assurance from taking these courses, then that's just another benefit.
Go ahead, Mary.
Oh, I was just going to say, I just am so proud that we have offered these courses and that we are expanding the offerings. My daughters both took advantage of the ECE programs that were offered at the time they were here. And one of my daughters did end up at UConn, and she had taken some UConn ECE credits. And not only did she get credit, but she's graduating this semester early, I would think. So that is a huge benefit. But imagine walking into college already having perhaps a 4.0. You know what I mean? You already have, you walk in there and you're like, all right, like, I'm doing all right.
Takes the pressure off the first semester.
It does. It gives you a little bit of Plus, you have the option of, if you don't choose to graduate a semester early, you can perhaps take a fewer courses and not have to be so loaded down, and you can kind of take some of your harder courses without having to take a full load, a 15 plus credits. But it was a huge opportunity for her, and I think, and my other daughter as well, she went to Quinnipiac, but she also got to take those credits with her. So I just can't say enough about it. I think it's wonderful, and I'm so happy to hear that we're expanding those opportunities for kids. It's a great program.
Yeah, you guys, really impressive. I'm curious, you're taking all these extra courses. Are any of you in band, chorus, do sports, have a job? You're all shaking your head. All shaking your head. It's really a lot to take on. It's really impressive, and you're gonna love that you're not gonna have to spend so much money at the other end of it.
Anyone else? The only thing I would say is I think it's remarkable that you can do all what you're doing, to Heather's point, and then also tackle these classes that were really not necessarily made for somebody who's in high school right now. So it's credit reflects on you guys that you were able to do all that you do, plus do that. And then I guess the only thing I wanted to know is did any of these courses in any of your experiences shape what you decided to do next?
Yeah.
I would not be at rally for at 6:30 in the morning running sprints and doing push-ups if I had not done all the way across the entire class.
Okay.
So that's definitely
All right. Cool. Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah, I just want to thank the students, thanks to staff. As somebody who just paid actually for a semester of college for my daughter at Central Connecticut State University, literally 2 days ago, on behalf of your parents, thank you for doing what you're doing. I know the Kellers and mom and dad, and that's helpful. So thanks so much for being here, guys. We appreciate all you guys are doing, the staff.
Yeah, I'd
Thank
just like to give a shout out to our staff too, who are willing
Yeah.
to put in the extra work to be certified for this classes, to create the syllabus and get them approved, and to be supportive of our.
100%. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Appreciate it.
What's that? Yeah, actually, can we take a picture real quick with the group? Yeah, I'll make a visit.
I already gave you your links.
I know it's hard.
Yeah.
Let's do it in front of that. I know, right? He's saving us all. Shorter than I.
Great job.
Good job, everybody. Oh, yeah.
I'm just talking about how much more relaxed it is.
I know my cousin who tweeted about it. She's like,
All right. Now, the fun part is over with. This brings us to item 10, which is old business, and starts us off with the second reading of policies.
So I'll jump in, and then there's a series of motions that have been recommended for board members to entertain. I'll just say the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 policies that we are looking at for second reads, which is graduation requirements, would be updating a current policy, policy 5144, students 504 in the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. Will be a new policy. It is current. I'll just remind board members that it's currently a regulation, but should be a policy. The next policy, 4218, is the same policy, but for staff. does not exist as either a reg or a policy, and it should, so it would be a new policy. 4219, external heat illness awareness, is not a current policy, and it should be to be compliant with updated legislation. And then the last one is policy 4220, emergency action plan for interscholastic and intramural athletic events. So these came as first reads prior to for our last meeting. I had no feedback or comments or questions for changes. So what we did is we cleaned them up, and they're clean versions of the policies. And I would recommend that the board move forward with adopting the policies as presented.
Would it be easier? So who's my policy coach? Eric? Would it be,
Mary.
and Mary, would it be easier? Yeah,
Carrie.
Carrie. Yeah.
Sorry.
That's
Okay.
okay.
So would it be easier, do you want to talk about each of these in advance and then go through the motions? Do you want to, do you have anything, any input to them?
Well, we did review them earlier, the subcommittee meeting, and we were in agreement with moving forward as Colin has described.
Okay.
With a pro.
Kate, any input?
I agree with Eric.
Okay. All right. So then why don't we do this for those first five then? Why don't we'll bring the motions up, obviously open an opportunity to discuss them and then go through a vote on them. But if there's nothing that's controversial or any, significant input that we need to go for those five, unless it arises as part of discussion, we'll go through those relatively quickly. So for 10.1A, graduation requirements, I'd entertain a motion to adopt the revised policy 6146, graduation requirements as presented. I'm sorry. Thank you, Mary. Is there a second? Thank you, Heather. Is there a discussion? Did anybody on the line join us from the border? No? Okay. All right. Hearing none, we'll do a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that one carries unanimously. All right. So that brings us to 10.1B, which is 5144. And I would entertain a motion to adopt policy 5144, students, and section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 and Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990 as presented. Is there someone willing to make that motion? Thank you, Gabe. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Heather. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll have a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that is carries unanimously. Brings us to 10.1C, 4218. At this point, I would entertain a motion to adopt policy 4218, which is the employees and section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 and Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990 as presented. Thank you, Eric. Is there a second? Thank you, Mary. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none, we'll do a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that carries unanimously as well. And which brings us to 10.1D, which is policy 4219. At this point, I would entertain a motion to adopt policy 4219, external heat illness awareness for intramural and interscholastic athletics as presented. Thank you, Heather. Is there a second? Thank you, Mike. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, we'll do a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, hearing none, that carries unanimously. And that finally brings us to item 10.1E, which is 4220. And I would entertain a motion to adopt policy 4220, emergency action plan for interscholastic and intramural athletic events as presented. So moved. Okay, thanks, Joe. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Heather. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll have a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that carries unanimously as well. And it finally brings us to the subsequent ones. Do you want to talk through?
Yeah, I can just tee them up if
Yeah,
you'd like. So these are, as the board knows, not only are we looking to update and make sure that our policy book is most current with updated legislation, we are also looking at it from the lens of what are some policies that currently exist in our policy handbook that don't need to exist in our current policy handbook? Either they could be in a parent handbook or a student handbook as opposed to a policy. And so these are the first of a few that fall under that umbrella. And if you want to go through them one at a time, I can certainly speak to each one. But basically, I'll just say in general, the recommendation came from our attorneys at Shipman and Goodwin, who reviewed our policy handbook and recommended repealing each of these policies because either they are covered under a variety of other things like FOI and mandatory requirements or other policies that currently exist in our.
So can you just maybe just hit the highlights of the Board of Education, but each one?
Yeah, absolutely. So for the first of all, the Board of Education meetings, this policy is not required, and it only states that Board of Ed meetings shall be held at RHAM High School, and the board shall establish and file a regular meeting schedule. First and foremost, we're not meeting at RHAM High School anymore.
We're in clear violation. It moves us to delete that policy.
Minor detail, but then the other reason is the obligation to file a meeting schedule is actually in state law, so it's not required to be a school board policy. And it was recommended, and it is already included in bylaw 9342, and the recommendation from our Shipman attorney is to.
Okay.
Keep going.
Yeah, might as well just go through them. And then we'll
Sure. So for policy 1130, school district records, this policy is also not required as it addresses what is in the FOI FOIA law. Also, the second paragraph is problematic because it references documents excluded by this policy as being potentially different from what's excluded by FOI law. So we could have conflict. And so the policy also requires that the school principal shall notify a requester of a denial and the reason for it. And school principals are generally not involved in responding to FOI requests. That's typically something that comes from central office. The next one is notifications. We're recommending repeal as meeting notification is already discussed in bylaw 9340A, construction and posting of the agenda. And the last one is health. For students, this policy is outdated and does not comply with current law around immunizations. Furthermore, the board may remember that we actually just adopted policies related to health immunizations and health assessments. And so the important pertinent information that was in here is covered under those two policies. So again, it's unnecessary and recommended.
Okay. All right. So we'll go back through. If there's any questions, you can certainly tee them up with Colin as we go. And then if not, then we'll just move on. So for item 10.1F, Board of Education meetings, I'll entertain a motion to delete policy 1122, Board of Education meetings. Thank you, Joe. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Eric beat you. Thank you, Eric. Is there any discussion?
I'll just say that we went over this group as well.
Okay.
At the subcommittee meeting and discussed it in some detail in our agreement.
Okay, I should have done that first. Dave, anything to add to that? No. Okay. All right. Hearing no further discussion, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that carries unanimously. Brings us to 10.1G, which is the school district records. And at this point, I would entertain a motion to delete policy 1130, which is the school district's records. Is there a motion? Thank you, Mary. Is there a second? Thank you, Mike. Any discussion? Hearing none, voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that's unanimous. Brings us to 10.1H, which is policy 1124. And I would entertain a motion to delete policy 1124, notifications. Okay, there, Heather, thanks. Dave, a second, or Eric, a second? Okay, thanks. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that's unanimous. Brings us to 10.1I, which is 5141, health students. At this point, I would entertain a motion to delete policy 5141, health students. Thank you, Eric. Is there a second? Thank you, Mike. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. And any opposed? And there are none, so that is unanimous. Which brings us to item 11 and new business.
So the administrative team has put together a presentation. We wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to share our assessment data from from the 22-23 school year from standardized assessments that have been administered to students. And at this time, I would like to invite Dr. Michael Cerruti, Dr. Ken Brisbell, and Mary Rose Mead to the podium to share the results with the board and how those results are being used to identify goals geared towards increased student achievement.
All right, hello again. And I thought this was live, so if I look like I'm talking to a mic that's not working, that's what I was doing. Appreciate help.
It
Does it
picks
actually
up
work?
for the,
Oh, it picks up for people outside. All right, thank you for those who are listening inside. Okay, so good to know. So we are here tonight to present to you the data for last school year, but we are going to start by sharing our calendar for this year's testing. So at the high school, we do have our PSATs. We took the grade 11 in October. We will have grades 9 and 10 as well in the spring. SAT grade 11 is in March as well, and that is our state exam as well as the SAT for grade 11. And then our NGSS, which is the New Generation Scientific skills. Yeah. NGSS, yeah. Next Generation Science. There you go. I knew it was close. I'll be back. That's also grade 11, so you'll see our grade 11 students, unfortunately, are tested in a standardized testing 3 times in their grade. Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Ava knows what that feels like. Oliver will know what it feels like this. And as well, we can't leave out our advanced placement exams, which are also in May, the first 2 weeks. And depending on how many advanced placement classes students are taking, that is 10 through 12, but I would say the majority are 11. And then next would be 12th graders and then a smattering of 10th graders. Middle school will do 7th and 8th grade Smarter Balance in the spring, and also the NGSS in the spring as well for 8th graders. And grade 8 does the PSAT, which they did in October. So as you can see, our 8th graders are tested 3 times as well. So our 8th graders and 11th graders do a lot of testing. But it does give us a lot of great data. So we're going to start with the high school. So our PSAT 9 last year, well, comparative to the year before as well. So we're showing you the previous year and then last year, just so you can see the difference. Our mean score is above the state, as well as our individual tests. And then also from 1 year to the next, you can see that they've gone up in most places, not all places, but especially in math, from 62% to 82%. I know we've had a lot of math, interventions and things that we've looked at and some adjustments we've made. So fortunately, we're seeing the fruit of that labor. We also have the PSAT 10, which we see in 2021-22 and then last year. And we have scores trending down from 53% to 46%, both meeting benchmarks, but it's still not really statistically significant. But we do see that in the English, we have both from 90% to 77%, and for math, 54 to 49. But the good thing about the PSAT 9 and 10 is those aren't tests that we're held to at the state level. These are in preparation of the grade 11 assessments. And they just give us information to help us understand, what that cohort of students may be needing. And so that we do have time to intervene and provide supports so that when it gets to grade 11, that they hopefully will see an increase in their scores. And of course, we've only been doing this probably for about the last 6-7 years that we've been doing it from 8 to 11. So it's relatively newer for us to be able to see that a cohort go from 1 year to the next. But we will all remember fondly COVID that interrupted really the progression of that, and for us to really be able to see, exactly how our students were really doing if they weren't, in the middle of COVID and all that. So, so the data is interesting, but again, it doesn't tell the whole story. So if you go to the next slide, we have grade 11 SATs from last year. And for English writing, we had 540, which is above the state average of 493. Math 532, which is again above the state average of 482. And the total of 1,072 to 975. Now we're always above the state average, which obviously is a good thing. But we do know that our data is showing that our students are trending down a little bit, which is consistent with most high school across the state or across the nation, we really should say, since COVID. So if you go to the next, you'll see the 2021 being at the bottom. You can see that the scores drop a little bit. So from 560 to 549 to 540, and then 568, 549 to 532. As you can see, the state numbers also declined. And if we were to show you other schools around the state, that you would see a similar pattern. And then we go to our AP tests. This gives you the variety of tests that our students are able to take if they take the coursework. So anywhere from art classes to world language classes, history classes, science classes, English classes. So it runs across a lot of the curriculum areas. And so when our students take those tests, they are specifically prepared for them by that coursework and our teachers. And you'll see on the next slide that our AP data for last year was that we had 345 students taking an AP exam. We have those who get a score of a 3, 4, or 5, which is passing, and they get college credit, is 320. So a significant percentage, which is 92.75% of our students who do then receive or earn a passing score and then are eligible to have those credits count at the college level, depending on where they're going and what college they're doing. So the college does decide whether or not they accept those credits, but we find that, many do. And so our students are walking away with a lot of college credits as well in the AP programming as they do in our dual enrollment programming. So all in all, I would say at the high school level, before we go down to the middle school, is that, we are not surprised by some of the scores going down a little bit, but we have done a lot already before we even really got all of this data, because we knew with COVID that we would have to do things a little bit differently and provide different supports. So we'll talk a little bit about that at the end, because we do it collectively, grades 7 through 12, but we'll let Michael move on to the high school in a minute.
Good evening, everyone. So why don't we start with the PSATs? You can see that last year, math actually improved slightly, while English language arts took a small bit. We are tracking it. You'll see we started tracking in 2018. And the significance of that, that's when the administrators, we adopted the long-range goal of trying to improve our cohort SAT scores overall. And the only way to do that, to compare apples to apples, was to administer the PSAT 8 in middle school. Because to be honest, with the SBAC testing, once you get to high school, that's meaningless. They only look at SATs and PSATs. So we made that decision back then, and we've been trying to focus on that. You can tell when COVID hit, because you could see the dip. State is trending down, but as you'll see, if you go to the next slide, there are some comparison there for you between the last 3 years. A little harder to see on the bottom, but you'll notice 864, 871 overall, and 869. So we're close. It's not like a significant dip overall, but when you look at some of the sub scores, they vary. Can we go next one? Then we come to our smarter balance and the next generation science assessment. I've included from 2015 to present. You'll notice that the trend line is is dipping. And it is consistent. It's not a great place to be. I'll be honest with you. We now look at the 7th and 8th grade scores for the last couple of years. But when I look at, if you look down ELA 2022, I have to look at cohorts. So 2021 7th graders were at 62 in ELA. They are at 56 in 2022, 23. So they went down slightly over the course of a year. Math went up by a point. One of the things we did institute over the last year, year and a half, is we have put a math coach in place, a math literacy coach, and that seems to be helping. It helps some of our teachers coordinate the curriculum between the two, because we did not have a curriculum director or anybody who was overseeing the whole 7-12 continuum. It was up to department coordinators. And there's a huge picture, and I know Mary Rose is going to talk about the picture in a minute, so I won't steal her thunder. But we put something in place, I'd say I put something in place using some of our Title I grant funding to help with the math. This past year, we proactively put something in place for English language arts, because we noticed even amongst our students, we are seeing, call it the COVID dip, call it what you want, but to be transparent, we see them going down. And we see the scores coming in is where they're learning to learn again in some ways. But in our structure at the middle school, they're becoming students in a different manner than they were in the elementary schools. And that transition has had an impact on them. Obviously, impact on the whole state, but as a regional district, you take 3 towns, you're bringing them together, there's a cohesiveness that we're trying to build and a common understanding. It takes time. So the ELA position, it was put in place this year, and we're starting to see fruits of that labor as well. I know science is discussing a revision. I won't steal their thunder. They'll present that at another time. But MGSS has been around for a long time. We've looked at our curriculum. We try to do a lot, and perhaps we're trying to do too much. So next piece of this is what do we do with the data? And I'm going to turn it over to Mary Rose.
This is my favorite part because this is the doing part. And when we look at data, and we have this data that you're seeing, and there's other kinds of data that we engage with, including having faculty members look at the trends in their own classroom spaces, the assessments that they are given. But we try to utilize the data in different ways, from long-term planning to sort of year-long or within a year planning, and sometimes the data forces us into an immediate response. So we use data to help inform our professional development activities. One example was coming out of COVID. We knew that students were they were challenged in the area of engagement, and a lot of that data came to us from the sending elementary schools, from what we saw in our own classrooms. And so we created a 2-year goal around student engagement when we came out of that. So that's the way we would use it. One way we would use it for professional development. Another way is we have an issue right now where we're trying to meet the needs of some students in the middle school. And Michael and I just finished the Title IV grant, and we put in there some grant funding for teachers to learn more about blended learning and ways that they can help support students with different types of programming. So we definitely use data to help our staff help the students, and not just one way. If you go to the next slide, there's other ways that we use this data as well. We use it to create district goals. And when we think about, for example, in the short term, in the immediate, we use lots of different assessments, but we use something called NWEA map testing, which gives us some aligned data across all of our students coming in from 3 different places that send us different kinds of data. This year, when we gave that, we found that our incoming 7th graders, there were far more of them that needed remedial services for reading, and we didn't have anything in place because we haven't confronted this issue to this degree before. So we used that data, but then we just didn't rely on that. We went back and looked at the SBAC data that Dr. Sarusi spoke of. We talked to the teachers, and we created an immediate response. So at the beginning of Q2, we created some cross teaming. We created a separate course to help support some students that were struggling and needed more remedial assistance. So that can also happen where you have an immediate response to try to meet the needs of students. And we'll also use it for curriculum planning. With the PSAT, and right just prior to COVID, which really messed up our whole response with data, but we had drilled down into the actual questions on one of the PSATs to see what exactly are our students missing. It was a PSAT 11. What is it? What kinds of questions are they missing? What are those discrete skills that they aren't getting? And then we identified those and presented out to the entire faculty in order to include those particular skills. And then that would then again, when we were writing curriculum, weave into curriculum. So it's really, there's many ways that we use this data to support student learning. But I think the important thing is that we sit down quite often and talk about what do these numbers say? What do these say? Do they agree? And then what are we going to do about it? And that's part of the reason I'm excited about the job that I have now, because I have a feeling what we saw this year was probably also a situation last year, but we just didn't have anybody to look at the data with all the time. And the literacy coach and I spent a great deal of time on that. And then we were actually able to put something into place to meet student needs. So I would say that I'm very proud that we don't just do data dives and really look at things, but that we do something about it. So, and Michael, did you want anything else in there?
Just a quick add. We've done this presentation for years. And one of the things, when we first did a presentation on data like this, a couple of the support students were sitting in the one of them says, data does not define it. And I just want to make the point. Data does not define numbers. It is a number. It informs us of areas that we consider areas for growth, but we also have to look at the total picture. There are students in here and there are adults in here that have different strengths and weaknesses. We need to recognize it. But what we need to be able to do is to figure out how do we work with them to get them to improve. It's that process of continuous improvement. And so while we're talking about numbers, about students, we're not talking about specifically Ava and Oliver. We're talking about their cohort of students showing us that perhaps these skills might further develop. That's
Any questions?
I'm glad that you're looking into this data because I'm seeing some fairly obvious trends, at least in my industry. These would be glaring. So I'm not an educator, but I tend to be one on Monday nights occasionally. It seems to me that the effects of COVID are hanging on. At least that's what I would interpret into this data. So I'm really glad, Mary Rose, that we have you in the role that you're in now to help us recover, identify you as well as the rest of the administrators of the school. But you're the tip of the spear. And so I'm thankful that you're in that role and you're recognizing the need to react to this. Thank you all.
So so one of the things I do know, similar thoughts around what Mike was saying about the data, that the numbers stick out to me because that's what I do. But the thing that I recognize that the colleges also recognize that there is a fall off, and most of the schools that I had the experience of going through with Matthew, they're not even requiring SATs as part of the submission, or it's an option. If you don't, it doesn't count against you. I guess the only thing, and I appreciate, again, echo Mike's comments, I appreciate Mary Rose and the rest of you, what you're doing to kind of attack the problem, because just looking at the numbers isn't going to do us any good. But I think the thing that I was wondering is there what is the state saying? I mean, clearly the state is seeing the same numbers as you mentioned. Is there anything from the state about, particular feedback, support, mechanisms?
I think what the state has is the grants that are available to us based on our numbers. And so taking advantage of all of those options. So I just finished Lieutenant Colbert with my goal now. I keep looking at what's up, what's next, because just places to fulfill needs that we meet. Again, and what happened with this year were these we didn't know we had, and we just had this panic situation where we realized that there was a greater need than we had imagined. I've spent some time this week looking at national trends, which are frightening in terms of this data as well. This is a national issue, and it's very overwhelming when you look at it. Very daunting, but I think one thing that we're fortunate with is that we have this incredibly dedicated faculty who are all hands on deck and are willing to go the extra mile. Again, not just for the dual enrollment pieces where they have to spend extra time on syllabi or attending special trainings, but for the students that are struggling, people that are willing to put in some extra time to read. I just handed a teacher on Friday, I said, here, I have this book, it's about this issue that you're dealing with. And she sent me an email on Saturday and said, oh, I just read half the book and I love what it's about. This is going to help me with the class. So we have great faculty who are really putting in that time.
That was my next question, was the national trends. So if they're echoing kind of what we're seeing, I mean, where do we fall out in that? I mean, I take great pleasure every once a year or so recounting, well, where does RHAM fall out in the kind of the state and national, marker? We are generally very close to the top.
Connecticut is higher than the national trend by +3, I think, in math and around that same thing in reading. We're in like the top 17 for the country in some places, in most places. And I only got into the reading and the math, and then there's a writing and science. I didn't get that far into that dive, but so we're definitely trending better. Some of the things the state has done overall, they put more attention on paraeducators who are support people, and they do incredible work. And we've actually started building in stronger paraeducator specific professional development for them. So just all of that coming in together. But the state of Connecticut is doing better. We're doing better as a district than some other places, but there are other places that are, some of that has to do with socioeconomics and whatnot. But I never want to be like, well, this is where we are, so this is where we are, And I also, we were surprised by what we found by doing some standardized testing on our income 7th graders. But again, the elementary schools are also dealing with the pandemic and all that. So we're all sort of figuring out how do we take what we have and how do we help students grow. And again, in all kinds of ways, not one test. But like I said, we were going to make shifts, and we talked to the teacher and said, this is what we're seeing on the SBAC, this is what we're seeing on this test. What are you seeing? And it seems like the student's on a trajectory of growth. We said, okay, let's leave the student in this particular class.
One plug that I would just throw out there, and I periodically force the Morris boys to take more advantage of it than they should do it more often on their own. But there is for anybody that's paying attention to this meeting, there's a math lab opportunity, and and writing lab, and I just know writing is, our math is generally the challenge that goes on at my house, but the ability to take your study hall whenever it is, whichever period, and go to a study hall that has a math teacher in it and help you go through your homework or help you catch up on a particular program. And I'm sure the writing lab is very similar. Just making sure that parents know that that's an option that's available to every student all day, every day. And I don't know the use. I guess probably not for this meeting, but I would love to know what is the rate that students are taking advantage of that.
They're very busy places. Yeah. If our seniors were here, like they are like, especially first quarter of senior year, it is a very full, the writing lab anyway is very full. And the students, I find that students become more aware of these resources as they go through, freshman year, maybe not as much, they maybe don't utilize as much. And with each passing year, maybe because the work gets more challenging, they're running off to there are some days when one of the writing lab teachers had 6 or 7 kids in there every day by a certain point in the year, and she said going around supporting leave academic labs as well. We had talked about how we use data a couple of years ago, looking at our math data, the incorporation of some intervention math work in period 8. I think that's part of why we were able to see, we sort of buck the trend by having our students increasing now that we've been able to look at the data more carefully in ELA, hopefully being able to impact some of our students who are struggling in those. Reading is, you have to be able to read, and especially for the kids who are coming in and really struggling, you don't want them to be looking down 6-year career frustration. And so this is super important.
I'll just jump in and say, I think that I appreciate the questions. I appreciate the sentiments, and it's concerning to me when you see data trending down. I think you used the term like COVID fog. Maybe I might be wrong. I don't know when, I don't know when we're going to see the end of the COVID fog. And I don't mean that to make excuses, but I think about what our elementary folks are dealing with, like the students who were in preschool, kindergarten, first grade, where they're learning those foundational reading skills, foundational math skills, foundational, they're going to be behind, and our elementary colleagues are going to be just doing a lot to get those kids caught up. And that's going to be a trend that we're going to see, because what I know is research shows that if students are lacking basic reading skills and are not reading on grade level by the time they leave second grade, they're going to be kids who struggle for much of their academic career. So I don't know how long this fog is going to last, but I'm worried it's going to last for a while.
Yeah, our current seventh graders went home in the March of the third grade year. I have a chart on my board in my office. They went home in third grade year. They were in that COVID strange year when they were fourth grade. And I was just talking to a reading specialist about this. He's fine. That's the year when they discovered Harry Potter and all these great books that they get to sit and learn that they can read independently. And they lost some of that. And that definitely, and that's part of our strategies to get them reading things that are frustration to realize they can.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be something that we are going to continue to contend with for years to come. The other thing that I'll say, because I feel compelled to say this, is I also think that RHAM might even be at a greater disadvantage than some other neighboring districts. At least we had been. And the reason I say that is because we didn't have somebody in a position for 4 or 5 years in the position that we now have for Mary Rose. And when I've done the job that Mary Rose is doing in a different district before, and when you don't have somebody who is kind of building that cohesiveness between the different areas and departments to make sure that instructional strategies that are being utilized in one content area can also carry over and be utilized in other content areas. And having somebody who really is focused on instructional improvement, curriculum improvement is crucial for the success of school districts. And I know that position existed in this district pre-pandemic, and it was eliminated prior to the pandemic, I think shortly before. And I will tell you, but I will tell you, like, if there was a time when that position needed to exist, it would have, it's always, but it was critically important during the pandemic because, and in the years coming out of it, if that makes sense. So,
We're picking up the piece.
Yeah. So I appreciate the board's support, for putting Mary Rose's position in place. I think it's having somebody who's really just solely focused on that is hugely vital for us to move the trend in the other direction.
Can't take our foot off the gas.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, and, we did have a MES visit in 2000 and but it was shortly after we did get the full-time administrative curriculum director, and we were cited as that we were commended for having that in place because historically we hadn't. And that is something that he asked, and that is our accreditation process, that if we don't have that in place, so many other things, get lost in the shuffle. And that was considered a strength of our district at the time. So it was not great to see that go, but I'm very appreciative that work.
All right. Thank you
Thank
very
you all
much.
very much. Appreciate it.
All right. That brings us to 11.2 and the first read of quite a few policies. So why don't we just go down the list?
Sure. So it's the first read, I believe, for 3 policies. All 3 of these are actually current existing policies in our policy handbook. And the first one is 4118.2, 4218.2, alcohol, tobacco, and drug-free workplace. And really the updates that are being made to this policy are reflective of a couple of different things, just some added definitions and some added language that is specific to electronic nicotine delivery systems, as well as the fact that cannabis has now been legalized for people 21 and above in the state of Connecticut. And it adds information and language about the fact that those two changes have been made since the policy was last updated. And I can certainly entertain any questions that the board might have.
I'll just mention that, again, with these policies that we're going over, we've discussed these in quite a lot of detail at the subcommittee. Feeling very positive about them. Any questions that the board has, of course, are welcome.
And I can go on the next one.
Yeah, I don't, unless there's any questions specific to this, I don't remember picking anything out that I thought was.
So I'll just speak briefly about the next two. So the next one is employment and student teacher checks. Again, you're going to hear this over and over from me, is it's critically important that our policies are reflective of the most recent legislation. And this is a policy that was recommended to be updated because it is currently not aligned with current legislation. What I could say to the board is, even though our policy does not reflect what current legislation is, the good news is that our practices do. That's one of the things that happens a lot is we find out that these changes need to be made, we implement the changes, but the language in the policy does not get updated. So that's why we're doing this heavy lifting with our policies this year. So what I can say again is we're in alignment with our practices. We're just not in alignment with the language of our policy.
A great example of that, right, was the heat policy for the students when they were exercising outside for the sports. We were doing the right thing, but it wasn't written in the policy.
The next one is policy 1435, possession and use of deadly weapons or firearms on school grounds. Again, this is a situation where it's an existing policy. Changes have been made in the legislation around it, primarily around not just possession of a deadly weapon or firearm on school grounds, but it also could be on school transportation or around or any type of school-sponsored activities as well. And again, we're just making sure that we're getting things that's been updated since April of 2016 last. So those are the three policies that we are looking at for a second read for next time. And I can certainly entertain questions now, or if there's anything, questions that come to mind after this meeting is over, people can communicate directly.
I don't have questions. Anybody? Nope.
I can go into the
Yeah.
repeal. So there's I believe 4 policies that we are recommending repeal or deletion of. Again, this is a first read, so that will not be done this month. That will be done next month. The first one is 5214, student use of motor vehicles. Again, this is a policy that is not mandatory and not required, and our attorneys are recommending repeal. I will say I did check with the high school administration, and this is something that is already covered and highlighted in the student handbook. And that's one of the things that our attorney said was, if there are things that are covered in policy currently, but can just be in handbooks, student handbooks instead, and then they're more easily changed and kept current. Similarly, leaving school grounds, it's not mandatory, and I'm recommending repeal, as is our attorney. Again, this is also something that is highlighted and talked about in student handbooks. And finally, 5211, dismissal of students. Very similarly, not mandatory, recommended repeal, and it is information that is covered in student handbooks. The last one, 5210, student interviews, again, not mandatory, recommended repeal from our legal team. I will say that this is something that is not covered in student handbooks, but I will tell you that principals wouldn't give access to students to a reporter coming onto school grounds saying, I want to interview this particular student. So we wouldn't give access to that anyways, just because I don't know if it would technically fall under FERPA, but we just wouldn't give access to reporters. So just from a practical place, that's not a practice that we would engage in. So again, happy to answer any questions if board members have them now or in between now and our next meeting.
Questions? Anybody? Okay. All right. Which brings us to the financials.
All right, so 11.3A, you'll have your enclosures in the packet. So the net favorable or the projection for the net favorable position as of October 31st, 2023 is $166,074. That's approximately $26,180 more than I reported in the month of October. You will see that we're still gathering invoices for our agri-science and our magnet schools. Those are places that we have to pay to send our students, or parents choose to send their students to those facilities, and we have to pay for that. The capital improvement fund, the crack ceiling and line painting was completed, as well as the middle school bleacher replacement of seats. The middle school woodshop filtration has been ordered and has been delivered. The installation will be in December during the winter break. High School 325 HVAC reconfiguration is scheduled for winter break also. The system-wide exit signs are back ordered with no anticipated delivery, so we are researching other sources so that we can find something that's quality, so that we can use. Central office replacement AC units. It has been bid. We have somebody that we will award the bid to, but that will be done in the December timeframe. It's too late for this meeting. The system-wide facility assessment, the reference checks for the company that Mr. Schleihofer suggested are being conducted and are almost completed. We are waiting for one more respondent. The capital non-recurring fund, we are awaiting planning and zoning approval. However, we have to provide the information, and unfortunately, Mr. Schleihofer has been a little bit behind. So he has to provide 14 items to planning and zoning for their consideration of the material containment. And the People Services Department is closely monitoring their students and making sure that purchase orders are encumbered in alignment with the IEP meetings that they hold. Are there any questions that the board might have? So hearing none, the next item is 11.3B in your packet. So I'm requesting a transfer be made from the unallocated project line in capital non-recurring to the irrigation well replacement. Last month, we requested that $27,063.39 of available funds was moved to the unallocated project. After doing a triple check, unfortunately, we were a little hasty in moving $13,953. So I just need to move that back to make sure that the project itself is not over expected. The fund is in nowhere near the project. The fund itself is fine. The director of facilities tracks the project, the cost of the project. I track the fund directly. So there was just a misalignment of where he put.
We're still 13,000 on the plus side.
Yeah.
Okay, so why don't we do that? Why don't we manage it now? I'll put a motion out there and then we can have a discussion about it as necessary. At this point, I'd entertain a motion to approve the reallocation of $13,953 from the capital non-recurring unallocated to the irrigation well replacement project.
So,
All right, Mike, is there a second?
Yeah.
Thank you, Eric. Any discussion? Just to be clear, just to reiterate, we moved 26,000 last month because we thought we were finished with that project, but there's still 13,000 as a balance that still needs to be paid out. So we're still, when I said we're 13,000 on the plus sides, we're still not moving everything that we had set aside for that. Any other comments? Hearing none, we'll do a voice vote. All in favor? Any opposed? Hearing none, that carries unanimously.
Thank you very much for that. Okay, so 11.3C is the food service monthly sales and expenditures for the month of October. So we are currently running at a loss of $54,886.63. We're still awaiting receipt of the third allotment for the supply chain grant, which was approximately $37,000. So once that money comes in, that'll help offset the loss that we're currently experiencing. And just for everybody's edification, the food costs have increased as of October 26th. They were increased as of the 8%. So we're seeing 8% higher costs in food and supplies for the cafeteria. So are there any questions that the board may have on that?
Nope.
Great, thank you. So 11.3D is the middle school, high school student activity report as of October 31st. The balances that are reported in this report match the bank. Are there any questions that the board may have on that? Nice. So the final object for me is 11.3E. So as of October 31st, 2023, we reinvested dividends of $1,606.62. And I've also included the historical rates for the month. And again, it seems like the rates, the annualized rates seem to be trending upward. So it was a good idea to invest the funds as we have. Does the board have any questions?
Anyone?
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Eva. All right, that brings us to committee reports, facilities, safety, transportation.
Facilities doesn't have anything new to report. We didn't cover it at our last board meeting. And as a matter of fact, we canceled the November facilities meeting. Our next one is in January. No.
Finance, audit, compliance, and insurance.
Yes. Before I start, I would just like to thank you, Mike, for being our chairman. I think we have a pretty smooth running machine here, and I think that goes directly to your leadership. In line, the other board members, that there are additional responsibilities that end up going to a chairman, some unpleasant. They've come up over the past couple of years, and Mike just has absorbed those things and taken care of them without passing on that stress to the board. I very much appreciate that, and I'm thankful that we've had you for this.
Thanks, Fred. I appreciate
This is also my last meeting, and it's been a pleasure to be on the board. And I've met a lot of great people. Now, as far as reporting out to finance, I plan to bring in some numbers regarding the possibility of bringing some students in from the Columbia school system. Those were not fully baked, and I'm not going to present any of that tonight. I think I can kind of describe what we're thinking about in a nutshell, or I'll attempt to put it in a nutshell. And that is that, as we discussed at the last meeting, there is the possibility of some kids coming over from the Columbia school system. We received a presentation a month or so ago on that topic. And part of it is that there's a certain tuition number that we would have to meet in order for Columbia to consider sending the kids over. And there are opposing ways of looking at this decision. One way to look at it is to say that they're offering less than what our taxpayers pay from our three towns, and so we could say no. And there is a data point sort of supporting that, in that there was a proposal from the town of Franklin a year or so ago, very similar, and we said no to that. However, there is another completely different way of looking, which is that it represents revenue for the budget. And if the amount of revenue coming in is more than the amount that the budget would go up by absorbing these goods, that there would be, it would turn out net favorable, and that is something for the board to consider. So I don't have numbers. And I've only said what I've said so that the board can generally think about this moving forward. And, you know, I think there'll be more study to come. And I have confidence that the finance subcommittee will be able to handle that and that the board will make a decision, whatever that may be. Thank you.
Okay.
I just have a question.
Yeah, sure.
I'm sorry, I couldn't attend the meeting. I had a conflict that night, but there's a mention of an occupational therapist position with another district. Is that is that something we contract?
Yeah, so I'll speak to that. That was another agenda item.
And thank you for.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, so the board may recall that we had in last year's budget, we had a 1.0 FTE full-time occupation. The decision was made that we didn't need to fully staff that position of a 1.0, that it could be reduced to a 0.8. Ultimately, that decision was made and it was a good decision to make. Unfortunately, the person who was working for us wanted to maintain a 1.0 FTE and just made the decision to leave employment with the district. What we had to do, because that was fairly short notice, was we had to contract out for occupational therapy services, and that's what we're currently doing right now. And Christine Hartwig, our people services director, had a really creative idea, which was there's a neighboring school district that has indicated a need for a 0.4 FTE for an occupational therapist. Christine has looked at the numbers and feels that we would be well equipped with a 0.6 FTE. And so we're looking at the idea of creating an opportunity for shared services. How we would want to see it, and this is what we discussed at the finance subcommittee, was that we would be the employer and we would essentially contract out with this other district. And it would be a shared responsibility of both salary and benefits at the 60-40 split. The benefit to us being the employer is, should our needs change and we need to go from a 0.6 to a 0.8, we could say we're going to a 0.8. And we couldn't do that if the other person was the employer. So this is a model that has been set up by other school districts, and we feel it would be advantageous for us to do the same thing. So we brought this just concept to the finance subcommittee to say, is this something that the group would be supportive of? The overwhelming feedback was absolutely, it definitely would be something that, and so we're going to move forward with that. And I can certainly try to answer any questions with you.
I guess the only question I would have is from what we budgeted to what it will end up costing us, is there any material difference?
No, it would. Well, we haven't done the budget for next year because it would.
Oh, it wouldn't take effect.
It would. Yes, correct. I apologize. I should have been more clear. We would maintain the remainder of this year with our contracted services, and then we would build the cost in for 40, 60 square feet.
Any other questions? Okay. Negotiations, nothing, right?
We don't. We're going to have a couple coming up starting in the next couple months.
Okay. Did Carrie join us by chance? No. So policy, either Eric or Gabe, do you guys have anything you want to update us on?
No. Yeah, nothing really other than what we've already talked about during this meeting.
Okay. Program communications?
I had a conflict. I had a parent-teacher conference.
How dare you be a good parent?
No, I had to
I mean, a right, good teacher. For crying out loud.
So if it's okay, I'll go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah.
So we talked to Mary Rose Mead and the heads of both the math department, I think, and the ECE department.
It was math and intelligence.
Good, special ed, thank you. So there were a couple of new classes that are being introduced. One of them is a computer language for engineers. It sounds like it's exciting. And the other one was an alternative a class for
adapted health.
Adapted health, yes. So for special education. So both of them were met with positive feedback from the committee, and so the folks are going to move forward with those programs. It sounds like incorporating them into next year's.
Okay.
I'll just add, because it's a subject for the evening, we're super excited about, we're excited about both classes because they're going to be really good for the kids. But just in the, the conversation with dual enrollment, the computer science class that's going to get put into place is actually is adding to our ECE program. So it's going to be another dual learning opportunity for our students.
It's really exciting being on the program committee. I've been able to hear about all the new courses that are coming up. I mean, it's really exciting. I mean, I think these are really great opportunities for kids.
Yeah, I didn't bring it up when we were talking about it earlier, but hearing about these programs really does, it encourages me and reassures me that we are making changes and adding curriculum that is specifically targeting some of the trends that are in the wrong direction relative to performance.
I think the thing that's most encouraging to me is how we're, there's I think certainly past all school systems or a lot of school systems, it was just try to get as many kids as we could to college. And what college and what to go to college for, and wasn't really necessarily the focus. And I think we've definitely learned that there's a percentage of kids that are definitely going to go into that kind of traditional pipeline, and then there's a percentage of kids that we owe just as much of an obligation to set them up education-wise to succeed in those other pipelines, whether it's the workforce or some sort of trade school or the military or whatever. So every time I see all of those kind of non-traditional sort of maybe non-traditional from maybe old high school standards to current high school standards, where we have all these sort of programs related to the different colleges, is really encouraging. I think we're catching a lot of kids that maybe wouldn't have been caught in the past. So, okay, facilitators. I can tell you that from EastCon, there's nothing material that EastCon is doing that's any different other than the great stuff that they normally do, and they continue to get healthier in some of the financial aspects that have been challenging for them in the last couple of years. But other than that, they're continuing to move forward with the same programs, and they continue to support us. I found one more EastCon person running around that I didn't know existed here at Hebron, and so at RHAM, it always surprises me when I meet one of them that's working in yet another capacity that I didn't realize they support us in. Carrie, I don't think joined us, right? Anybody join did anybody go to the CABE? How was that?
I thought it was really pretty good. This sounds really awful to say, but I was really surprised. I should have thought that through a little bit.
Yeah.
No, I almost, in the very beginning, I was like, oh, this is just really going to be kind of teacher educator focused. And it really was not. Colin and I talked about a lot of different things that we could bring back here, getting board member, like an orientation type of thing when you start your new term. What does it look like? What are the roles and responsibilities? I mean, there was just a lot of different things. And the thing that I really liked was before every morning session and at lunch, and even at dinner, they had student performers from different school districts, and they were phenomenal. They were really great. So it was worth it. I was really glad that I went.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. So I would just to our new board members that are participating, getting ready to jump in every aspect of anything that has been challenging here at the board, especially in the role as an officer on the board. I've contacted Mr. Caruso at CABE, who's I don't know if he's the president.
No, he's a senior associate.
Senior associate. To be able to just get a really good feel for how do other boards manage this, what's the best practices. So CABE, especially from a new board member perspective, I went to that my first year, that weekend, and you'll have an opportunity to do that as well. And I strongly suggest that you do that just to make those connections and be able to feel comfortable about reaching out to them if you have questions, and whether it's in your capacity on certain committees or whether you're serving as one of the officers or just being on the board. The CABE was extremely helpful in a lot of challenging circumstances, and so I think pretty highly of them. And as a new board member, I'd certainly try to take advantage of that. Okay, so that brings us to public comments, which again, bear with me for one moment. Hebron, Andover, and Marlboro community engagement and attendance at Board of Education public meetings is welcome. The public comment segment of the meeting agenda is set aside so the Board of Education may receive public comments. Procedurally, public remarks will be limited to 3 minutes and citizens will be asked to identify themselves. Because the Board of Education is limited by the Freedom of Information Act to discussing only matters on the agenda, the Board of Education is not permitted to engage in a discussion of comments presented. So at this point, is there anyone physically present who would like to comment? Please, sir. Join us from the 70s couch.
Yeah. Smelly, Fletcher Riverdale Marlboro, RHAM president. On behalf of the teachers, we'd just like to thank those board members that are going to be leaving us. We appreciate your time and your energy and your efforts and all that you've done to make RHAM a continued success here. I just want to wish you well on the next endeavor. Thank you so much. I thank you as well personally. I appreciate the fact that some of you stuck around long after your own children have flown the RHAM nest, and it really says a lot about our community. I appreciate the work. Likewise, I'd like to thank the new members. Welcome. We have a great team, and we look forward to working with you on our teachers. Thank you very much for what you're about to do. Appreciate it. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks, Steve. Is there anyone online that would like to give public comment? Go ahead and make yourself known or raise your digital hand. Oh, sorry, Mike, did you want? Please. Well, you go first and then we'll come up one more.
Mike Susi, middle school principal, and also the head of the RHAM Administrator Association. I think on behalf of all of us, we want to thank the board, those members that are leaving for their volunteer work, the work that they've done the past 2 years. It's always, I'm going to speech, I say, it's sort of tiring, it's a lot of work, very hard. Having sat on that side of the room, and having sit on this side of the room, I can tell you that the rewards are the growth. And your dedication is appreciated by all of us. Your dedication to us, to the staff, to the custodians, everybody here. It's been very valuable, and we appreciate your service, all of us. We welcome you on board. We look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Eric, was anybody online that indicated? No. All right. Which brings us to item 14, which is informational items. Anything of note on the calendar?
So I think Ava mentioned it earlier. We do have a blood drive tomorrow. And I will tell you, if you have an opportunity to sign up, I don't know if it's too late officially through the blood drive website, but if you email Kathy Green tonight, please do, and then tell her I sent you because she's mad at me because I didn't sign up because I'm on a schedule to do donations every 59 days and throw my schedule off. She didn't care about that. She's very, very competitive, but I said to Kathy, I'm doing it more frequently. So anyways, but if you're able to do that, I've been donating blood since I've been legally allowed to do it as literally as often as I possibly can. It's just a huge thing. So if you're able to do it tomorrow here at the high school, email Kathy. I'm excited about the drama club production of Puffs that is coming up December 1st and 2nd. If I understand it correctly, I did a little research. It's a parody of sorts of the Harry Potter series by J.K. Rowling's. Which I love those books, so I'm excited to see it. It's a different perspective of the Harry Potter kind of action. So I'm excited to see that. That's again, they're doing a Friday night show on December 1st, and then they're doing a matinee show on the 2nd, and an evening show on Saturday the 2nd as well. So please come and see us, see our kids do great stuff. So high school winter concert is going to be the 14th, December 14th in the high school auditorium. And, you know, we've talked about the success of our fall sports. There's no rest for the wicked. A lot of those student athletes are going to be segueing immediately after Thanksgiving into our winter sports, which officially begin on Monday when we come back from Thanksgiving. So excited about the winter sports season and some of the indoors activities. So, and that concludes my information.
Any questions on either calendar or any of the discipline reports? I didn't notice any deep dark trends or changes or anything like that. Okay, which brings us to adjournment. And at this point, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Thanks, Mike. Anybody? Second. Thank you, Gabe. Any discussion? Hearing none. Voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.